Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. Well, look, Graham, over time we've talked about vodka and marketing top-end vodka on the show. We've talked about caviar, marketing that. We've talked about fine wine, and that was more an angle of how do you invest in fine wine.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about whiskey.
No, but we're going to put that right today because we got Ian Logan from the Duncan Taylor group, and that they basically are, one of the finest businesses in whiskey, and we've got a special bottle that we want to talk about. But Ian, first of all, welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you've got a lovely Scottish accent. And now you can't tell this, but I'm actually half Scottish, mother from Glasgow. And so I have a real affinity. And when I was a kid, of course, who do you want to win, Scotland or England? Mum or dad? Bit awkward, but I kind of grew out of it. So it's always England now. But having said that, you're up in Huntly near Aberdeen.
Yeah, I'm about 30 miles west from Aberdeen, about a third of the way across towards Inverness. So the wild north up behind the wall, as they would say in the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and it's lovely up there, and I've spent a few holidays up that area, and in my younger life we went up there all the time. But I've got to say, it's a wonderful part of the United Kingdom, and it's where whiskey is made.
Yeah, no, legally we've been making whiskey since 1494. So if that's when it was legally made, you can be damn sure it had been made before then.
The difference between legally made and wouldn't be illegally made before then. There just wouldn't be a law.
No, just be getting caught. That would be the only difference.
So, and of course, there's something about the water, isn't there? I mean, obviously, whiskey like the back of your hand. So basically, is the water in your part of the world, is there something special about it?
A lot of the distilleries, it's a beautiful, soft water. The Highlands of Scotland, the mountain range itself is one of the oldest in the world. It's about 580 million years old, and it's granite. So a lot of the rock is very hard, which means as the water filters through it, it dissolves very few minerals. So you get a very pure, very gentle water coming through. And as long as it's consistent,
yeah. And when it comes to other ingredients that go into making whiskey, what distinguishes a really good distillery like Duncan Taylor, for instance? Yeah, and I'm certain you're not going to run down other distilleries, but what distinguishes a really good distillery?
Well, from our perspective, we're not distillers; we're bottlers, independent.
Okay, fine.
So we're dealing with a whole ream of distilleries from across Scotland, and what we do. The unknown ingredient that no one's ever been really able to put their finger on is people.
Right.
So you can have the best technology in the world, you can have the best ingredients in the world, but if you don't have people with a passion and a pride in what they do, you're never going to get the finished product. That applies to anything at the end of the day.
I guess.
But
yeah.
I've got friends in the industry that I'm 35 years in the industry. I'm just a boy. I've got friends that are 40, 50, 60 years in the Scotch whisky industry. The oldest is 68 years old. And
Right.
68 years in the American whisky industry.
Yeah.
That tells you about people.
So, okay. Bottlers then, that means you can choose or you have access to the finest whiskies that you can bottle. And I know I'll declare to those people listening, as I have been working a little bit with within the company, working to promote a particular bottle called the Premier Octave. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, this is one of the 74 bottles that exist in the world. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the quality of the casks that we use. Ewan Shan, who's our chairman, trained as a cooper a number of years ago. I'm not going to embarrass him and say how long ago, but 60-70% of your character of your whiskey comes from the wood.
Right.
So you invest in the casks, you're going to get a wonderful whiskey. And these octaves are something that we specialize in. They're about an eighth the size of a sherry butt. So they're around about 70, 80 litres in size. So they're only ever going to give us maybe 70 to 90 bottles. So every expression is unique.
Yeah.
And because
that word, Ian, expression, does that just mean how much you can take out of the cask?
no, it's different age statements. Now we've got Macallans that are younger than this. We've got Macallans that are older than this.
Right.
We think this one's at its sweet spot. This is the time to bottle it. And no cask is exactly the same. It's a living, breathing thing.
How did you decide then? Because it's 31 years old, so that's 1991, isn't it? So basically, you've effectively decided sweet spot, Macallan. I mean, first of all, you had me at Macallan actually, but I mean, then 31-year-old, as an expert in this field, Ian, that is a sweet spot. How do you know though? How would you know?
You don't until the time comes.
Right.
No, Ewan bought these casks. What we do is we own the casks, and we go to the distillery and we buy the clear new make spirit as it comes off the still, and that's what we fill into the cask. But over time, and as the whiskey becomes older, you nose it and taste it on a regular basis to see how it develops.
Ah, I see.
And some will go quicker, some will go slower. But as I said, with this particular one, at 31 years old, we thought, right, this is it.
And did you have a say in that, or other people within the business? Are there other people with, shall we say, with due respect, a better nose?
Oh yeah, there's definitely better people than me in the industry. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But no, we've been running a partnership with Sir Nick Faldo for probably just over a year at the moment. And Sir Nick and Ewan were looking through the casks. Sir Nick's a perfectionist. Yeah. You don't become one of the most successful golfers in the world without having the drive and the passion. And everything he does, he's at the very pinnacle of it. No, I've spent some time watching him fly fishing down in the river near where one of our facilities is. He does everything 100%. So when you and him are working,
I can vouch for that. I remember as a youngster with my dad, following a professional tournament round. It was played at Whitley Bay Golf Course in the northeast, and we spent several holes following this sort of new young up and coming English golfer Nick Faldo around. And Dad and I were watching him and thinking he's thinking good, and then the cursing and swearing that was coming from the tee box, because he thought he should have been 9 inches nearer the pin than the ball actually ended up. Yeah, perfectionist, absolutely perfectionist.
And now he's a Sir Nick Faldo, and had a career where he's been, I don't know, major golf winner. What is it, 6 or 7 times? He's been a real success.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is he's endorsing the Premium Octave.
He was there with you when the cask was chosen.
That is amazing.
It's not just the case of the bottle and the box carrying a signature. He did have an involvement in the actual choice of the whiskey itself.
That I mean, that's really nice to know. And because he's not local anymore. I think he lives out in America. Does he not?
He lives he's in Montana just now.
Right.
They've just had their first snowfalls, and they've got him and his wife, Lady Lindsay. They've got bison and they've got elk walking across the estate at the moment. Oh, sorry, the ranch. The ranch.
Yeah, I mean, from the communication, it says here that this is to quote Sir Nick. He's basically said, "I fell in love with the grace, complexity, and integrity of this single cask Macallan." Can you try and help me sort of disaggregate that, Ian? He talked about the grace, complexity, and integrity of this single cask Macallan. Tell us a little bit why the investor or somebody who kind of would like to get their hands on this, why that statement is so important.
No, when you look at the integrity, we talk about that. No, we're looking at a whiskey that's came from what's probably regarded as the finest Scotch whisky distillery in the world at the moment. They have those uniquely small stills. that they distill from, those copper pot stills. And that's what gives it a lot of its grace and elegance. It's a lovely, rich, heavy spirit that comes off them because of small stills. It's quite oily, it's quite pungent, carries a whole range of flavours.
Yeah.
There's 160, 170 identifiable, hate to use the word when talking about whiskey, but chemicals in whiskey that relate to flavour.
Right.
And there's so many of them are there. And I've had this glass sitting here for probably half an hour.
Yeah, well, and you're just letting it breathe, aren't you? Is that a really good idea?
This is aromatherapy at its absolute best. There's nothing quite like
I like that. That is definitely a new take on aromatherapy, Graham.
Yeah, I don't. We've never had in 350 or so episodes. We've never had a guy at the other end having a glass of whiskey whilst we were recording the podcast. But Kevin, we ought to make it a thing. But at least the hosts have a glass of whiskey while recording the podcast.
Well,
yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. But no, seriously, one of the things I've also noted is this thing called the octogram, and it says now that's you're holding that up there now, and I can see that there's for the premium octave, you've got a before octave and an after octave. My question is, what's it before and what's it after?
When it was maturing primarily in its first part of its maturation, it was in American oak, which is known as Quercus alba. Right. And American oak gives it a certain flavour profile. It tends to be vanilla, floral, light tropical, fruity notes that you start to see coming through with that. But the octaves are all made from European oak and have previously held Oloroso sherry. Right. So we only put it in for a small period of time because a smaller cask, percentage-wise, means there's more whiskey touches the wood, so it matures a little bit quicker. It doesn't need a long time. It's almost like putting, if you think of that first cask as the canvas of a painting,
yeah,
the octave is the actual painting on top that gives it its color, gives it its complexity, gives it its depth.
Wow.
And when you first pour a whiskey into a glass, the more volatile molecules that's in there are going to come off first. But you go back to that 20 minutes later, 25 minutes later, that first tier of volatiles have gone. So you'll get a second one coming through. So it's changing the flavour profile again.
Wow.
So is this saying in that what you shouldn't just be having one glass of whiskey, and you go out there, you should pour yourself two, because the first one and the second one are going to taste different?
Pace yourself. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think that is so important, and the fact that you've left that alone for a little while tells me volumes rather than necking it. You know, this is the finest whiskey you're likely to get your hands on. So, but what is interesting, if I follow you right, before octave, this American oak casket, cask, sorry. At some stage, you've got to take it out of that and put it into this sort of sherry-based cask. Do you literally just have to port it from one to another?
It's not a million miles off of that. It's maybe a slightly more industrial process, a slightly bigger scale. But yes, primarily that's what you're doing.
So, and this stuff is quite valuable, Graham. You're going to have to be damn careful and very precise with this because you don't want to spill any.
No, I get that. No, I get that, and I would imagine that people have gone down the road who have. So basically, the important thing here is, and I'm just looking at this there. Well, before octave, you've got, like you said, you've got the sort of citrusy apples and florals and toffee vanillas, and then after you've got toffee vanillas, but you've then got this nutty, oily, dried fruit sherry. Spiciness that comes across. So you've got this, like you were saying, you're almost like painting in, like you've got a canvas, but you're painting almost like two layers, aren't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this idea of the more pungent things come off first.
Yeah.
So don't treat a glass of whiskey as something that's just one thing. It's many things, isn't it?
No, if you go out to a bar to enjoy a whiskey, there's so many background smells, there's so many noises there, you're never really going to appreciate it. But on a Friday evening when you're sitting at home, the week's hopefully over. You pour yourself a gentleman's measure, 2 fingers worth, and just depends how big your hands are.
I notice your hands are quite big.
Notice that the 2 fingers that he put out weren't next to each other either.
They weren't next to each other. I love that.
But then you have time to do it. And the other thing that makes a big difference, and I've been taught this by numerous master blenders and master distillers over the years, is the use of water.
Yes.
Not necessarily drinking for pleasure, but nosing and tasting. Because I'll never show up in the camera, but I've got some water here.
Yeah.
You ought to see this place. There's glasses, there's bottles lying everywhere.
No.
But what happens is you pour the water into the glass. It goes slightly oily, which tells me it's high alcohol strength. But what you're also doing is you're stirring it up. You're creating heat. It's an exothermic reaction. So that little bit of heat again helps those more subtle, delicate aromas within the whiskey to come through as well.
Yeah. So it's not watering it down, it's actually improving the experience that you've got as a whiskey drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I because I had a real problem with it. I some years ago I booked out Dalmore House, which is next to the distillery, which I'm sure you'll be aware of.
Yeah, I know Richard well.
And well, we had a fantastic time there, and we took the family and so forth. But we also did a bit of a tour, and that's where I learned this thing about pour a little bit of water in. I just found that, are you really sure? This is such a lovely whiskey, as it is. But the addition of a little bit of water does actually change the essence of what you're drinking.
Yeah. No, at the end of the day, you drink for your own pleasure. No one else's. If you want to drink it straight, you drink it straight.
Yeah.
But certainly, I've found through experience over the years that I just need a little splash of water.
Yeah.
I watch these people drinking super strength whiskies, and they take a sip, and then the next thing you see is them going like this. Why the hell do you want to do that? No,
I get that.
You're paying a lot of money for it. Give it a chance to show off what it can do.
Yeah.
Proved that it's worth to you.
So back to the Premium Octave. We're talking about a 31-year-old Macallan. Macallan, one of the best distilleries in Scotland, as you say, at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, people right around the world will know of Macallan, and it'll be one of the most popular whiskies. But if you're an investor, or maybe you're thinking about this as a gift, maybe as a Christmas gift, but also maybe as a corporate gift, then this could be quite a very, very valuable. Can you imagine a special client, and you're going to give them just one of 74 bottles? I mean, that's got to say something about you, particularly if you know that person to be somebody who's interested in whiskey. It
shows care and attention, that you've went to a little bit of research, a little bit of effort in trying to find something that's different, that's going to stand out from the crowd. Macallan's in an incredibly fortunate position just now. Russell Anderson is making some brilliant whiskies up at the distillery just now.
Yeah,
but they are an exceptional quality. It's faultless what's coming through there just now. But
as I understand it, this is going to cost around £4,800 or thereabouts, and so therefore it's not trivial. But actually, there's only 74 bottles. And before long, I mean, we've got to you at the earliest stage, and before long they'll have gone. And the important thing is that people have this opportunity, and I really wanted to have you on because your knowledge of whiskey is fantastic, and it's good to know a little bit more about the thing that you're promoting.
But we could fill another octave with the same with whiskey and put them next to each other, but they will not mature at the same time. Once these 74 bottles are gone, they're irreplaceable. This is a unique expression of Macallan.
Yeah, and I get that completely, that it's unique. And I remember going around a distillery in Pitlochry, just the Hogmanay just before lockdown, and doing a tasting, and we were tasting the common whiskies that came out, and then we started talking about the rare ones, and they were usually because the distillery had gone out of business and they weren't producing anymore, so the last products were becoming rare, and because there were so few bottles. But just something I don't quite get here, I go into the supermarket and I can see 10, 15-year-old single malts from a particular distillery.
Yep.
Now, they're selling way more than one barrel full of that particular, say, 15-year-old malt.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd expect one bottle to taste very much the same as the next bottle. How come what you've done makes it so unique? Surely if you had 3 or 4 barrels of the same spirit sitting next to each other in the same bonded warehouse, being decanted from American oak to European oak at the same time, being bottled at the same time, wouldn't you get the same whiskey?
No. When you look at something like, let's say, a 10-year-old whiskey, that 10 years means that's the age of the youngest whiskey in the bottle. So the blender who created that whiskey maybe have used whiskies of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years. He's creating a flavour profile that matches the inventory he has, so he can keep that going over the years. No, that 10-year-old...
When it says single malt, it isn't really single malt.
A single distillery. That's all a single
distillery.
Malt
is. Yeah.
No, a single cask is a whole different thing. It's a unique expression.
Got you. Understand it completely. Yeah.
So, and it's a bit like a limited edition Aston Martin. My daughter-in-law works for them, and to get a limited edition, there might only be a handful of cars.
Mm-hmm.
You pay a lot more money. Now it's a car, and it'll go from A to B, but it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money than, shall we say, a regular standard off the manufacturing belt. A typical car, even though it's an Aston Martin.
Let me explain the angel share to you as well, because as a cask lies in the warehouse over the years, we lose volume through evaporation.
Yeah,
we lose it's on average about 2% per annum
of
volume while it's in the cask.
Right.
So it's constantly every day. It's becoming less and less and less. So you have to factor that into the equation as well. It's continually becoming
2% a year, and
yeah.
30.
I remember that the angel share story from that particular distillery tour. Yeah.
Remember though that we're talking year 1, 2% of 100%. Second year is 2% of 98%.
Yeah.
So it's more on a curve.
Yeah, but it's
about the low 20s, then. No, alcohol strength drops and volume drops.
Yeah. So all in all, this particular bottle, and look, if you're a listener or you know somebody who might be interested in getting this is a really good time to make a connection with the group who are selling this. And so the Premium Octave there'll be a link within the show notes that you can go and find out more information. And all I would say is you've given it a sense of coming into our house, our home. So Nick, he actually described it at one point, and he basically, like he said, he was saying that it had grace and complexity and integrity, and it's got. On here, it's got something called tasting notes, Ian. It was saying the colour is Oloroso sherry, which I know you've shown us it already. So it's that sort of almost like blood red, sort of light blood red. It's a bit like having your blood mixed in with water. But basically, you've kind of got that. The nose, it says, is a big sherried Speyside bursting with fruit and plum and a fruit and plum compote, vine fruits, a background of sweet creamy chocolate. Oh blimey, you got me at that. Surprisingly fresh.
You're not allowed to eat chocolate, remember?
No, dark chocolate's all right, and with useful exuberance. Now there's a lot of sort of marketing type words in that, but the point is, has a lovely nose. Now, how, as a whiskey guy, how am I supposed, once I've bought this, or I'm buying it for someone else, how should I provide extra value to my with my gift, or with just simply consuming it? When it comes to the nose, is there a certain technique? You were doing it yourself, you were kind of smelling it, but what were you trying to find out?
The gentleman who founded the Scottish Malt Whisky Society 40 years ago, maybe more, probably more now, is Philip Hills. And he described it perfectly. He says it's a subjective opinion of an objective matter. Nosing and tasting. I mean, the more you think about that, the more you need a drink.
Definitely. Yeah. I think I definitely need at least 3 whiskies to work out what that expression means.
But it comes with practice. No, you pick up a glass and you believe you smell apples. Fantastic. It's a massive step forward. But don't stop. The next question you should ask yourself is: it red apples or green apples? Red apples are sweet, green apples are sour. And that's how the master blenders do it. It just becomes years of experience of working your way through it. And when I sat down with Fergus, and it was Fergus, our brand ambassador, and I that wrote these tasting notes, we sit down and we talk about different things, and it can be life memories that come back. I remember him putting fruit waffles into tasting notes for a whiskey, and it was just that waver, that brown sugar note that he was looking for. And with the water here, there's almost a celery leather. When I mean a cellar, I mean as in a cellar under a house. A lovely, almost like a spiced apple pie note to it. The trouble is, we eat and drink with our eyes. We're lazy. We don't think about smell enough. But when you go into a supermarket or something, the psychology of smell really starts to come through. The first thing they always do, even if they don't sell it, you'll smell fresh bread.
Yeah, that's true.
Because everybody loves fresh bread. So it really just comes down to experience and just. I
mean, it's not just about an alcoholic drink.
Oh no,
it seems to be much more, much deeper than that. And actually, there's a certainty about this, because it might be that you want to buy and hold the bottle, and for those that haven't consumed it, will that bottle appreciate in value? Possibly, anyway. I mean, I know this is one of those things you have to make your own minds up on, but the whiskey market has been one of the best alternative investments people can make. So if I was to buy the Octave, the Premier Octave, the Premier Octave, and hold it, I'm probably going to see an appreciation of my original investment.
Yeah, I'm not going to hang myself out to dry here and say you'll make X percentage or Y percentage on it, but yes, it will. Yeah, it will benefit at the end of the day. And I'm going to go back to something. I know we don't ever to talk about whiskey. I appreciate there's time limits. You spoke earlier about how whiskey is something else. I asked people also to consider time. Where were you 31 years ago when that whiskey was made? Mm. What stage of life were you at? That whiskey's matured over those 31 years. We've all matured over those 31 years. I remember many years ago when I'm working for another company, I'm not mentioning any names, but we launched a 1969 whiskey. And we spoke about that, how that was the first year the jumbo jet flew.
I did 69. That was the last year Newcastle won a trophy. It's going to be a good year.
It was Woodstock. It was the last Beatles concert. It was the first man in the moon. So no, there's another dimension. You're drinking liquid history if you decide that you're going to open the bottle as well.
It certainly was a good year, but 1991 was also. I mean, I don't know about you, but young children. The third yet to come, but the second already here, and so it was a really interesting time, and I don't know, the same for you as well, Kevin, presumably.
Yeah, it was the tail end of my career in the chemical industry before I joined PwC as a consultant. So that was
I used to cook meth.
End of first career towards beginning of second. Yeah, there were 2 kids around. one was very small at that stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right that if you see that particular date, you do link the date with events, life stages, and so on. But now you're talking about a bottle of whiskey here that you're going to go out and you're going to pay with, I think you said 4,800, Graham.
Yeah.
Fine. I've done that. Now, to attract me to spend that sort of money in the first place has been a lot of marketing hype. Now, marketing hype, we're on this podcast right now because you and Duncan Taylor want to talk about this particular whiskey.
Yeah.
You've got people in place to help you sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're only selling 74 bottles.
Mm.
Now, some of those folks that buy the 74 bottles are going to drink it.
Yeah.
Pass it on as gifts. So let's say that you're one of the people that doesn't drink it. You've had this whiskey now for 5 years. Now, you as an individual don't have all of the marketing push and the marketing hype, and you've got one bottle potentially you want to sell. How do you go about that, selling the bottle of whiskey that you've invested in and hopefully making a profit out of it?
I would immediately look towards auctions, and I would look at people who do, particularly Macallan specialists, the likes of. There's lots of auction houses out there nowadays, and you guys are more than well aware of that. But the likes of the Sotheby's of this world, and these are people who are used to selling the top end products in any category you're looking at. These are the guys who will appreciate and understand what this Macallan's all about.
I think Ian's absolutely spot on, Kevin. I think what's going to happen there is that a short Google search will probably find you half a dozen people that you can have a conversation with, and before you know it, you'll have an offer, and maybe you've turned over something. You've got a reasonable return on your investment over a relatively short period, and whiskey has appreciated as an alternative asset. There's nothing stopping you just buying one. I mean, you could buy 20 of them if you can get your hands on them. But I've been reassured that we don't limit it one per client. In fact, I think your colleague said, no, I don't mind if it's one client buying 74. But I mean, I think it's possible, but you never know. But I would like to think that such a quality of whiskey is going to be bought by 74 different individuals, even though some of them will be gifting, some of them will be keeping, some of them will be holding for investment, but some of them will be actually consuming. I really like those people who say, I'm going to drink it. But I really
like those people who are going to say they're going to be drinking it as well. But at this point in time, Graham, I don't have the luxury of £4,800 to spend on one bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, but
we've got an expert in here. I'd really like to throw a question in that says, if I've got a sensible amount of money, let's say anything up to 100 quid, and I want to go and either buy a really good bottle to personally drink or a really good bottle to gift to a whiskey lover. What would the process you'd go through, Ian, to work out what that is? What would you be buying?
I would be looking at silent distilleries. Distilleries that have been demolished. Then you look towards single casks again, and obviously something that carries a number which has got a traceability and a history to it.
And actually, Kevin, I'll point this out. Anybody buying £100 bottle of whiskey, if your competitor is the one that's gifting the Macallan 31 years old, you're not going to be having the business much longer. Don't be cheap. Don't be cheap with your clients, Kevin. I mean, you should know this. But I would say though, we haven't really mentioned Sonic as much as perhaps we ought to do, because he's actually sweetening the deal. He's going to offer, a never to be forgotten prize for one of the lucky buyers.
It's a bag of used golf balls.
Well, sort of, but not quite. No, it's going to give a masterclass to one lucky, shall we say, recipient. And if you're going to get if you're going to get somebody to teach you how to play golf better, who better than Sir Nick Faldo?
No, you would almost ask, is that experience worth the same as the whiskey?
Oh, and some. And
that's an experience
golfer,
you can't buy. So how on earth do you put a price on it? And I'm thinking to a regular listener of not Alfie Joey on the Radio Newcastle breakfast show that we had on a few weeks ago, but Chris Evans on Radio 2 and now Virgin. And you get Chris Evans coming along at various times in the year raising money for charity and running an auction. And it's always things that you can't go out and buy.
Yes.
Something like a golf lesson with Sir Nick Faldo, you'd get people ringing up Chris Evans for something like that, and they'd be offering 10, 15, 20,000 pounds.
Oh, easily. But look, you have to buy. It's not a free offer. You have to have bought at least one of the bottles. So, and that would put you into the opportunity to have this masterclass. But everybody that buys the bottle as well is going to get a golf glove signed by Sir Nick Faldo as well, Kevin. So, even if you don't get the masterclass, you might have something that you can display proudly on your wall, perhaps above the place that you keep the bottle, and effectively that would be something special as well. So, Ian, you've been working in this industry for about 90 years. I don't know. I don't know.
That's what my liver tells me anyway.
I love that. So just tell us, when did you start in the industry?
I sold my first case of whiskey to a gentleman called Martin Elliott, who ran 2 off licenses down in Ayrshire in southwest Scotland, which is where I'm originally from. The case of famous grouse 20 centilitre bottles. That was my first customer, was Martin.
Right. And that was how many years ago?
That was 1987.
Wow. Oh, yes. Well, you age with my eldest child. And so that's some time. That's some vintage. And it's
funny how you associate certain things with certain people. I'll always associate famous grouse with my dad. It was always his go-to blended whiskey.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
Always a bottle of famous grouse in the cupboard. It's
also a blend that has a good bit of Macallan in it as well. It's owned by the same company.
Interesting. Yeah,
didn't know that, but and I think we have a famous grouse downstairs. But I have to say, of the ones I've tasted hitherto, the Dalmore stands out. I particularly like the Dalmore. Not everybody does, but I do. I mean, let's face it, 74 lucky recipients will be getting the Premier Octave. But if you had to sort of advise, and almost like a top 3 brands or whiskies to consider, length of time, maybe that kind of thing, not the same price range, but maybe Kevin's sort of budget price range, what would they be?
God, that's a good one. Bunnahabhain from Islay. Everyone associates Bunnahabhain, Islay, with being peated whiskey.
Yeah.
Bunnahabhain standard range is unpeated.
Okay.
Interesting.
So
it doesn't taste like TCP.
No, if you go to Islay and ask them, the Elix, the locals, what they drink, they'll tell you Bunnahabhain or Bruichladdich, traditional, which is unpeated.
Okay.
From a past life, Aberlour, which is on Speyside, beautiful raspberry, strawberry note in the new make spirit. Sandy matches it wonderfully with Spanish oak to create the different expressions again. And something a little bit off the wall, probably something like Old Pulteney from up in Wick. The only place in Scotland there was ever prohibition.
Yeah. I think they'll call you Southerners, won't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Wick is like so far north. You don't get any further north, do you? But
when the
Unless you're
herring,
in Shetland or Orkney.
Well, okay, fair enough. But on the mainland, but yeah, I mean, okay. Well, we'll note those. That's amazing. But if you were me and you were trying to write to the people that we've got on the list, and Kevin, we might just exclude you from it. But if you
I
don't,
would do, Graham. You're just wasting
Yeah.
the cost of a stamp.
all right, then. In which case, we won't do then. But basically, as you've asked us kindly, but what I would say to the thing that I would ask you is, if you had to summarize the Premier Octave for somebody who's going to buy it, give us an idea. What would you be saying to them?
it's a whiskey that we'll never see again. A unique expression of Macallan. It's something that people will strive to look for, to purchase, and hopefully it's something that will be talked about over time. Do you remember that Premium Octave that Duncan Taylor did? That 31-year-old expression that Sir Nick Faldo was involved in. That's one of my top 5 whiskies I've ever tasted.
And genuinely, is it? I mean, you've tasted a lot of whiskey. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sort of make you out to be some sort of lush or something like that, but it is your job. Would you say from the taste that you've had of that particular whiskey, do you think it is one of the best?
Well, I was telling Kevin just before we came on air, the oldest whiskey expression I've ever had was distilled in 1894, bottled in 1906, and it would probably be about 108 years old when we opened the bottle. Wow. The BBC were there to film the bottle being opened.
Yeah.
BBC were still there when we finished it as well, but that's another story.
I've got to ask, that 108-year-old bottle, what was it worth?
Actually, it's from a distillery that's not particularly collectible. But it was made by the founder's son, and it's one of the earliest distilleries in Scotland. So when you look at it from that perspective, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It wasn't just about the liquid.
Yeah.
I'm standing there going, the founder's son had this bottle in his hand. The Octave, you ask me how it changes it. What we're doing there is we have the scope to move away from the distillery character. That's what makes things like the Premium Octave so effective. The blenders and the distillers at the Edrington Group who own Macallan have to hit that same flavour profile every year to build their brand, to build their consistency. When we take it out of those casks and we put it into our Octaves, we can go off on a whole different access, a whole different journey altogether. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the Octave and the Premium Octave range. We don't need to follow the crowd.
So this is really interesting, Ian, because is it that you've actually, would the Macallan people be almost happy that you've altered things with this, the Premium Octave?
You would always send them a sample.
Yeah.
No, you would always let them know what's going on.
And they're probably thinking, why didn't we do that?
Well, that's a different discussion altogether. But what we're doing by sending them a sample is trying to say, yes, we're going on our path, but we're still maintaining the integrity and the complexity that Sir Nick was talking about in his quote as well.
Yeah, I have to say, it's we talked about the octagram. We've talked about the offer that Sir Nick has made in terms of a masterclass and whether the golf club. I mean, the golf club in and of itself isn't particularly expensive, but with his signature on, a slightly different game. It is a perfect Christmas present. It's definitely a special corporate gift, but also it's ideal, as you say, for collectors. And by collectors, it's another way of saying it as an investment. So, potentially if over, and that's one final question I have for you, Ian, is if you hold that bottle for, say, 10 years, is the taste going to be different from now if you're drinking it today?
First of all, buy two. Open one and drink it and keep the other one as an investment.
Yeah. Okay.
When it comes to whiskey, always store it vertically. Don't store it on its side.
Okay.
Anything above 20% alcohol should always be stored vertically, because long-term contact between high alcohol and the cork will damage the cork,
Right.
which lets the air in, which will start to oxidize the liquid.
Right.
Remember, a cork is just watertight; it's not airtight.
Okay.
So you will see tiny changes, but you have to be tasting it on a regular basis to be able to notice them. You won't see any. If you drink once a year, you'll never see or notice a difference in the taste.
But the one that you keep for investment purposes, and then that's sold, let's just say to somebody who wants it to drink because they've heard of it and they want in, will it change compared to today?
Not noticeably, no.
Right. So in other words, it's a very good thing to hold as an investment, because apart from anything else, the flavour and the taste of the whiskey will not change.
Storage has to be correct.
Yes.
As I say, that store it up the way, room temperature and away from direct light. And room temperature, you've got to remember, when the room temperature laws were written, especially for French wine going back to the 19th century in 1855, central heating didn't exist. Room temperature was probably closer to 17, 18 degrees Celsius rather than the 22, 23, perhaps, and higher in this house some nights. No, so storage has to be correct with it. If you're going to invest in anything, make sure you're doing the best to maintain the quality over time.
There's probably one last question. If you buy this as an investment, you are going to want to maintain it. Is a bottle like that something that's insurable?
Yes. Now, if you depending on your collection, the size of a collection, yes, I would.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. It's a very important. I mean, it's just like having a high-end photography equipment. I mean, over my shoulder, there's probably about the same amount of money as this bottle of wine, a bottle of whiskey, and that's definitely insured. So from that point of view, it's very, very important that you do protect the asset, particularly if it's an investment asset. And actually, even if it's not an investment asset, at the end of the day, it's something that you're going to enjoy as a family potentially for several years. And there's no rush to the bottom on this one, is there? It's not like you're going to quaff it in a night, unless you're a hedge fund manager, in which case then you probably don't know what this damn thing tastes like anyway by then.
That's the
probably
case.
Not emailing them anyway.
But I don't want to stop any hedge fund managers from buying them, because you're the decent sort, particularly the ones with the money. So anyway, Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Ian Logan from Duncan Taylor. It's been a pleasure having you on the Next 100 Days podcast.
So, Greg, very, very interesting to talk about that buying a single or 2 or 3 bottles of whiskey. It could be to drink or could be to invest in. Now, I'm just comparing and contrasting with the wine investing podcast that we did, where you were buying a case of wine or several cases of wine. It never left the bonded warehouse. It never came into your ownership. And at some point in the future, it just simply got sold on. This is a very, very different proposition. And you've bought that bottle of whiskey, you kept as an investment. There must always be a temptation there to open the darn thing and drink it.
Well, there is, or as I said, you can gift it. And I think if you've got a company and you're thinking now, a couple of months out, well, not quite a couple of months, probably about 6-7 weeks out from Christmas, and you have a special guest, a special customer, what better? I mean, sometimes customers can be worth millions to you. So buying them, sending them a Christmas card with your best wishes is one way of doing it. But if you want something that's very, very special, very unique, then, I think this could be a great alternative. But there is only 74 bottles and they'll go quickly. But we hope that some of our audience and some of our listeners will take advantage of the offer. It's the Octave Premium Macallan that's 31 years old. And as Ian's explained, it's a lovely drink. So all I would say, Kevin, is it's another great podcast. This time all about high-end whiskey.
Yeah, and
so
we're talking about some of those classic marketing things, giving scarcity, which is built into the 74 bottles.
Yeah.
And actually coming along with that is the other great marketing thing, urgency.
Yeah.
If we don't do something because there's only 74, they're going to be gone.
They are going to be gone.
It really is going to disappear.
I love the way that Ian explained the Octagon, the idea of two cask involvements that change the essence of the drink itself, and that would be very, very helpful to explain to people. But look, it's been a wonderful podcast with Ian Logan from the Duncan Taylor company, and I would just say, take advantage of the offer, get yourself on that list, and you never know, you might even have Sir Nick Faldo teaching you how to improve your golf game. Now that'll be something that's worth, as you said, Kevin, quite a lot of money.
I'd love to see Nick Faldo improve your golf game.
Well, to be honest with you, I think he'd have all on, but you never know with Sir Nick. I think he probably would be able to fix most of my problems. Yeah. I might be able to beat you then, but anyway,
his lesson would probably be saying, look, forget this, let's throw the golf clubs away, let's go inside and have a whiskey.
Well, he said, no, I'm not going to give you any kind of lessons, Aerosmith. You can just have another bottle of whiskey. All right, fair enough. I'll settle for that. So today I've been Graham Aerosmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.